Okay, Alexander, we're going to have to do another video on Kamala Harris. I never thought we would do a sequel to Kamala Harris's Southeast Asia trip, but we can't avoid it because it is worse than bad. It's gotten to the point of comical, farcical, clownish. I mean, where do we begin? She's having meetings with regime change NGO types of people, which I saw the other day, which is just such a bad look. She's meeting with these NGO regime change groups. The big one was yesterday, the video where she goes to, I'm stunned by it. She goes to a memorial, which not only Kamala Harris thinks this, but her whole media press communications entourage created this for her. And they scripted her statement for her, and she went along with it, where she goes to a memorial where they believe it's a memorial to John McCain. I'm sorry. They think it's a memorial to John McCain, but what it actually is a memorial to shooting down John McCain and other aircraft that were bombing Vietnam. And the memorial signified the place that they got them. And she goes in there and she's saying he's a hero, and this is on the third anniversary of his death is a touching memorial. And I'm speechless. Why in God's name would you think that Vietnam would erect a memorial to John McCain? What kind of brain dead nonsense is this anyway? It's going so bad. It's going so bad, Alexander, that it's left us to do a follow-up video. That says enough.
I'm going to say, you say, bad. I've never known a diplomatic mission conducted in this way. I mean, I just can't believe it. I mean, I am incredulous as I am watching this, because bad doesn't go anywhere close to saying how totally and completely awful it is. And I'm a person who uses measured language, and I'm usually polite about people, as most people know. Let's start with the beginning. I mean, she's going around in Singapore, which is a city-state with very close economic and financial ties to China, where the political elite is predominantly Chinese, where the business elite is predominantly Chinese, and which has striven to maintain close relations with China. She says unbelievably belligerent things there about China, calls China a bully. That does not go down well in Singapore. She then goes to Vietnam. Vietnam is a country, it's a powerful country. It's got very powerful armed forces, as the United States should know, having fought a war against it. It's a country with a booming economy. It's a country which wants to be friendly to the United States, but which also wants to be friendly with China, with which it has often had a difficult relationship, but with which at the moment it is China is its major trade partner. And though there is a territorial dispute over the Spratly Islands, the Vietnamese are trying to negotiate that carefully. Well, the United States wants to forge a closer relationship with Vietnam in order to counterbalance China. That's not an entirely inappropriate thing to want to do, and the Vietnamese might, in other circumstances, not be unreceptive to that. But what does Kamala do? She comes along, makes more incredibly belligerent speeches against China, says in Vietnam, in Hanoi, that there needs to be mechanisms to put pressure on China. So, of course, Vietnam doesn't want to be put in the position where it seems to be aligning itself with the United States and China against China in this blatant and open way. So what do? They call in the Chinese ambassador and basically tell the Chinese ambassador, please pay no attention to anything that Kamala Harris is saying. She doesn't speak for Vietnam, and that's not our policy. So instead of drawing Vietnam closer to the United States and away from China, Kamala then achieves the exact opposite. Then, as you absolutely rightly say, she commemorates the shooting down, goes to a monument that commemorates the shooting down of John McCain when he was flying and bombing Vietnam. as you absolutely rightly says, she appears to believe it's a monument to John McCain. Why anybody would think that the Vietnamese would put up a monument to someone who bombed their country is, well, incomprehensible. And why anybody with two grey cells to rub together would want to commemorate in any way anything that involves or concerns the Vietnam War, when the United States and Vietnam were fighting each other, that also is beyond understanding and comprehension. Bear in mind that all the leaders of the Vietnamese Communist Party will have fought in that war. So they will have experience of fighting the United States. Do you want to remind them of all of that? Yeah, that is what Kamala actually does. She goes out of her way to remind the Vietnamese that the United States was once their enemy, and she mixes up the purpose of this memorial. And as you said, last but not least, she has meetings with all these people from the NGOs, people that the Vietnamese must be feeling extremely worried, cynical and suspicious of, and not just the Vietnamese, by the way, but all kinds of other people. And of course, the result is that this diplomatic mission has ended in disaster. Right way to do it is, of course, you go to Vietnam, you forge economic links with Vietnam, you talk to Vietnam about perhaps they might want to buy US weapons. That's always a step towards direction. You build it up incrementally. What Kamala has done, I mean, a bull in a china shop, as the British like to say. Well, that doesn't come close to describing it. I mean, this is a shambles. It's, as I said, the most ludicrous diplomatic expedition I've ever seen. And it's going to make the Vietnamese doubly certain, what with the mess in Afghanistan, that the last country they want to align themselves with at the moment is the United States, because in Afghanistan it showed that he can't even run an evacuation properly, and with Kamala Harris they will have concluded that the United States is currently led by clowns.
Yeah, so we did a video on this a couple weeks ago when we found out that the slogan for this Southeast Asia tour was "America is back," and we not only mocked the fact that they would use that slogan to kick off this trip, we were doing them a service and warning them and saying, don't use "America is back." Be careful, be diplomatic. Don't do this. Don't even send her. But no. They pressed on, and we have the results of what's going on. 22 times McCain bombed Vietnam, at least 22 times, Alexander. And Kamala Harris goes to this monument, this memorial, this is the way they see it, a memorial. And she says in a scripted statement, he was an extraordinary American, a hero who loved our country. He was so courageous and really lived the life of a hero, always fought for the best of who we are. A man that bombed their country 22 times. This is what she says while she is on an official state visit to their country.
Yeah.
It is, I'm speechless, but can we blame, obviously Kamala is to blame because, the buck stops here type of mentality, but is she really to blame? She's clueless. And you have to go and look at her team and her staff and say, what the hell are you guys thinking? Are you that clueless as well? Because you're supposed to be the people that are on the ball. You're supposed to know where she's going to be on every day. All this stuff is pre-planned, not days in advance, weeks in advance to get the security ready, everything. No one in the entire White House looked at her schedule and looked at where she's going and what official events she needs to attend to and say, maybe you shouldn't speak to these regime change NGOs. Maybe you shouldn't go to this memorial. No one in the entire freaking Biden administration.
No, well, exactly. Well, first of all, I mean, the Vietnamese will have a completely different perspective of John McCain than Kamala Harris does. So calling him a hero, saying about how he fought the brave fight. Well, from the Vietnamese point of view, the brave fight, as you absolutely rightly said, was the fight which dropped bombs on them. So the Vietnamese are not going to be pleased by that. I mean, an American official, any American official traveling to Vietnam at the moment should keep very clear of any discussion of the Vietnam War of the 1960s. I mean, that seems to me absolutely, obvious. I mean, unless you are prepared to utter some word of apology or remorse for it, which of course the US isn't prepared to do, then I think you should steer very, very clear of the subject. To actually talk in that way about a person who was unbelievably antagonistic to the country all his life and who went ahead and bombed it, I mean, that's just crass. I mean, it's not just stupid. I mean, it is beyond stupid. Now, who is to blame? Well, Kamala obviously is to blame because she is the Vice President of the United States. She's been sent on a diplomatic mission. She's the sort of person who, if she aspires to the role of a vice president and wants to be a vice president and was formerly a US senator and all those things, well, she ought to be going careful to work out and to discuss and to think about Vietnamese sensibilities before she goes on a mission like this. The second person who's to blame is the President of the United States, Joe Biden, who picked this completely inadequate and incompetent person to be his vice president and who allows her to go on these diplomatic missions. Well, we've discussed what Biden's role is. We've discussed why perhaps he's not making all the decisions. And we've also discussed how it was that he actually did pick Kamala Harris. That might not have been fully his decision either. But nonetheless, he is the President of the United States. The White House team, the senior officials of the Democratic Party, well, they just leave me speechless. I mean, what can one say? I mean, this is incompetence on such a scale, a misunderstanding of things on such a scale that I simply cannot fathom it. All I can say is, the only guess I can make is that these people are so overwhelmingly focused on the political conflict in the United States itself that when they pretend to carry out diplomatic missions, they're not really doing so. They're not really interested in the US's external position, its external foreign policy, its meeting the real challenge in China. What they want is to win over people, as they think, in the United States. So they may be calculating that Kamala Harris, send her to Vietnam, get her to go where John McCain apparently has a memorial, or so they appear to believe, associate her with John McCain, and thereby win over the anti-Trump Republicans who used to follow John McCain's lead whilst, McCain was alive. And that might have been the calculation. But if that is the calculation, if these people are focused in this way, then all I can say is they're trashing the United States abroad in order to secure a few little points in the US, which, to be straightforward about it, I mean, no one in the US is going to be in the slightest bit impressed. There's a tweet, by the way, by Meghan McCain, John McCain's daughter, who says quite straightforwardly, I'm not impressed. Where Kamala Harris should be is focusing on Afghanistan, getting our people out of Afghanistan. She shouldn't be wasting her time in Vietnam. And that's exactly right.
Yeah, I mean, it's this is an elaborate scheme once again to usher out Biden, to usher in Kamala. But why would you usher in someone that looks so damn dumb and incompetent on the world stage? I don't know, maybe to usher her out as well, and then get someone in place who's going to actually run in 2024. So maybe this is some elaborate super villain plan to usher in Biden, to usher out Biden quickly, then usher out Kamala quickly, and then get someone in place to actually run for the Democrats in 2024, or these people are just plain dumb. I mean, they are just. I mean, yeah, I'm being. They're just plain dumb.
They are plain dumb. I mean, they may be skilled at the internal intrigues of the Democratic Party, but they're completely clueless about everything else. And all I can say is the United States has lost Afghanistan, and it's now lost Vietnam a second time, because the Vietnamese are going to be so unimpressed with this that they're going to say to themselves, well, you know, this isn't a serious country and we're not going to deal with it, because ultimately we see the Chinese who are on our doorstep. They're strong, they're purposeful, they're rich, and they're getting stronger. And we see the United States, and all it can send us is this Kamala Harris, who all she does when she's in our country is engage in a clown show. So, as I said, the United States, this month, it's lost Afghanistan and it's lost Vietnam a second time.
It's losing the world because everyone is looking at this. And
it is.
This is stuff of 10-year-olds. 10-year-olds would know that this was just a ridiculous trip.
Well, absolutely. I mean,
what's the world saying? What is the world saying? Biden and Kamala Harris. The world's probably like, my God, this is a train wreck.
That's a train wreck. And the other thing is, if you go to the European media, where up to now there'd been all this pretense about how the adults were back in the room after the horrors or supposed horrors of the Trump years, which of course weren't horrors at all. As I said, I always say this: nothing actually really bad happened. Well, Trump was president, but anyway, that's what they used to say. Now they suddenly realized that this whole thing is unraveling and that the wheels are coming off. The economic policy isn't working, and the diplomacy is not just bad. It's awful. It's not just childish. It's stupid childish. It's as you said, a 10-year-old would know that when you go to, a well brought up 10-year-old would know that when you go to another country, another person's country or another person's home, you don't say things to that person or in front of that person that would offend and embarrass them. And that's exactly what Kamala Harris has done.
Yeah, the Onion, the Babylon Bee, Monty Python couldn't make this stuff up. I'm being serious. This stuff. No. If this was from a Monty Python skit, I would say, oh, that's pretty clever. That's pretty funny. Yeah. This is reality.
This is reality. As you said, a Monty Python sketch is exactly what it is, except, it's not the Dead Parrot sketch or any one of those. It is, the Ministry of Silly Walks. It is actually Kamala Harris coming to Hanoi. That's the kind of sketch we're going to have.
Okay. On a serious note, what does the U.S. do? This is a serious question. What do they do? This is a real train wreck. You can't send them overseas. When they're inside the country, they're destroying it.
Yeah.
When they're inside the country, they're allowing people to burn stuff down. Crime is through the roof. The border's a mess. She was also the border czar, by the way, which no one seems to talk about anymore. No. Her border czar tenure seemed to go down in flames, if it even started. They confused genders. Critical race theory, when they're in the country, they're destroying it. When they're out of the country, they're destroying it. This is a serious question. What the hell does the U.S. do?
Well, at this particular moment in time, it's very difficult to see what they can do. They just have to ride this out, vote the right way in 2022, and that might be difficult because we know all the pressures, we know all the problems, but vote in 2022, get a proper Congress together and get that Congress to actually launch those investigations, which ought to have been launched long ago, both in connection with what was done to Donald Trump during Russiagate and all that, but also the later ones that relate to the events of 2020. And then then once you do that, put in place, find people who are able to take over the United States, and hope that next time round, when the wheel turns in 2024, you can actually have a United States that's still in a condition where it can be taken over. Once, I think it was Adam Smith once said, there's a lot of ruin in a country. The United States is a huge country. It's a great country, an awful lot of ruin in the United States, but it can't go on squandering its time in this way indefinitely. In fact, the clock is ticking, and frankly, 2022 is probably the last moment, the last real opportunity to turn things round. Otherwise, we will see major problems in the United States itself, and we could very well see a collapse in the US's international position. It's just collapsed in Central Asia. It's on the skids in the Middle East. It could collapse very quickly now in East Asia too. We discussed this in a previous program, and well, the situation in Europe isn't entirely great either. So, it's time is not, working in the US's favor.
And that's all under the assumption that in 2022 you get a Republican House and Senate, one or the other or both, preferably both, and that the Republicans actually do something and actually go ahead and change the direction of the country, because the Republicans, when they had the House, Senate, or one of the chambers, they were not very impressive.
Well, they weren't impressive at all. On the contrary, they were awful, to be straightforward about it. I mean, they didn't work together. They didn't support their president. They didn't achieve anything. I mean, Obamacare, incredibly, is still there, which they all said they wanted to do away with. So, I mean, that is astonishing when you consider it. But I'm not saying that the United States will pull it round in the next 2 years rather, or 3 years. But all I am saying is that it's got to work towards trying to pull it round within the next 3 years. And if there are any intelligent people in, the deep state, the interagency, the blob, call it whatever you like, I think the time has come for them to take pause and start thinking and say to themselves, do you realize what you have done? Because you got the administration you wanted, and look how it's turning out. So, I mean, they ought to be looking at what's going on in Hanoi, and of course in Kabul, and of course in all sorts of other places, and coming to the right conclusions. But, well, whether they can, whether they will, we just don't know. We'll just have to wait and see.
Yeah, and we're not even a year into this administration.
No, we're just 7 months.
Not even a year.
We're 7 months. We're 7 months exactly. So I mean, Afghanistan has been. Well, I'm not. We've talked about that, and now, as I said, Kamala Harris has just again lost Vietnam. 2 Saigon moments. Another Saigon moment, because in a way, in a diplomatic terms, that's what this is. In as many weeks. Not bad going.
Yeah. If your goal is to destroy a country, they're definitely doing a great job, if that's their goal.
They're doing a fantastic job. And as you rightly said, I mean, all kinds of problems in the United States. It's now gradually becoming accepted that the inflation is there to stay. The economy is weakening. Despite all the predictions it would boom, it's no longer booming. And of course, the situation with violent crime is exploding and is out of control, as is the situation on the border. So all kinds of problems, all building up, debt levels rising, deficits rising, trade with China, by the way, booming, all in China's favor. So I mean, none of it is going according to plan. If there is a plan, which, in terms of any kind of plan that a conventional government might follow to try and improve its country, well, I just don't see one. Of course, you could argue that there is a plan and that chaos is the intention, but, whatever, doesn't sometimes matter. If chaos is the result, it doesn't matter whether it was planned or not at the end of the day, because chaos is chaos. And that's where we're heading, unless people, as I said, take the steps now to turn it round.
Okay, we'll leave it there, and hopefully Kamala gets out of Southeast Asia, so we don't have any more incidences like this one again.
Absolutely.
And please don't send her anywhere abroad. Please don't send her anywhere.
Well, don't send her anywhere. I mean, it's not better abroad or at home. Just find something she can do in the White House and keep her out of harm's way, because not harm to her, harm to everyone else. Because, as I said, I mean, this is just, as I said, the weirdest diplomatic adventure I've ever seen.
All right, we'll leave it there. Go to the Duran.locals.com. Everybody, please join us there. All kinds of great articles are being shared on Locals, Alexander. Great articles. And someone actually shared one of the tweets of Kamala Harris meeting with these NGOs. So I forgot the username off the top of my head, because there's a lot of articles going on there, but thank you very much for sharing that tweet. So you're also helping us out to source information and get information as we do these videos. That's awesome.
Yeah.
That is awesome. Great community on Locals. And BitChute, Super U, Rumble, Odyssey. Check us out there. All our videos are there. And of course, Duran Shop. 10% off, Alexander.
Absolutely.
Real news.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's my Serbia mug, and you've got your Scotland. Is that your Scotland?
I've got my
t-shirt?
Scotland T-shirt, and I've got my mug with the Russian double-headed eagle.
Right. Awesome. All right. Take care, everybody.